We have to do some different factoring when A is not 1. We can't simply just do the diamond. So when we notice that a quadratic equation's A value is not equal to 1, we must solve a little differently. There are two different methods that are shown for each example, so choose the one that makes the most sense to you. The first method we're going to talk about is the box method. So again, when we're dealing with quadratic equations, we want to make sure that we see that surprise smiley face and that the quadratic equation is equal to 0. And we can see that this step is already happening for this problem. It won't happen for every single problem though, so we need to be aware of it. The second step is to use our diamond and then our box method to factor. Just a reminder, when we're doing diamond, when A is not equal to 1, we have to take this 2 and times it by the -3 to find what goes on top. So we get -6. And on the bottom here, we're going to get 5. Alright, so we find our two puzzle pieces. It's going to be 6 and -1. We're going to circle those two puzzle pieces. Now we're going to go into the box method. So let's draw our box. We know that our ax squared goes top left, 2x squared. Our c value goes bottom right, -3. And then our two puzzle pieces fill in the other slots with an x next to them. So 6x and -1x. And now we want to look for what they all have in common. So I'm going to start here. What do 2x squared and -1x have in common? All that they really have in common is x. I'm going to look over here. 6x and -3, they're going to have 3 in common. Now I'm going to go left to right. 2x squared and 6x, they have 2 and x in common. And lastly, -1x and -3, they're both negative and they both have 1 in common. And we have successfully factored. Let's write it in our factored form with our parentheses. We get 2x minus 1 and then x plus 3. Remember, it equals 0. Here's our last step. 2x minus 1, x plus 3 equals 0. We're going to do the same thing we did in the last video. So set each parentheses equal to 0 separately and solve each equation for x. So I'm going to circle this one, and I'm going to say 2x minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to circle this one, x plus 3 equals 0. We're going to draw our line down the equal sign. I'm going to plus 1 to both sides first here. Those cancel. We get 2x equals 1. And then in order to get rid of the 2, I need to divide both sides by 2. Those cancel, and I get x equals 1/2. That's my first answer. Draw your line over here on the right-hand side equation. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, opposite operation. Those cancel, I get x equal to -3. And that is my second answer. So here's the second method, is the slide and divide method. We already made sure that the quadratic equation is equal to 0. So I'm just going to show you how to factor with that one really quick here. So what we do for slide and divide is we still start with our diamond, okay? And again, we take that 2 and times it by -3. We get -6, 5. We already found in the last problem it's going to be 6 and -1. Okay, so now what we do is we go straight to our parentheses and we say x plus 6, parentheses, x minus 1. And then we bring in this 2 that we circled at the beginning, right? And we divide these numbers here by 2, both of them, the 6 by 2 and the 1 by 2. Now if it works out nicely, like 6 divided by 2 is 3, we just keep it that way, so x plus 3. But over here, it's a decimal, right? It's a fraction. So what we do when it's a fraction, we reduce it first, which this is all the way reduced, and then we bring this 2 up in front of the x. So I'm going to write 2x minus 1. Perfect. Equal to 0. And then step 3, we already did, right? So, I mean, I'm not going to write it again, but you can look back at the step 3 for the box method that we did. So we set each one equal to 0 separately, and then we solved. And we end up getting the same thing, right? So those are the two methods you can choose between. All right, let's do one more example with both box and slide divide. So in this problem, step 1 is not done yet, right? We have to make sure it's equal to 0. It is equal to -3. So the first thing I want to do is I want to plus 3 to both sides. Plus 3, plus 3. Those cancel over there. And on the left side, again, be very careful of how you write this. We're going to write the 4x squared first, the 8x second, and the plus 3 third. And then it equals to 0. That's what we like to see. Now we're going to use our diamond here for step 2 and box. So we're going to draw our diamond. Remember, take that 4 times that 3 to get 12 on top. And our 8 goes on the bottom there. And our two puzzle pieces are going to be 6 and 2. Draw our box over here. We know ax squared goes on top left, so 4x squared goes here. Our c value goes on bottom right, 3. And our two puzzle pieces go here, 6x, 2x with x's next to them. Now let's find the outside numbers by looking at what they have in common. What do 4x squared and 2x have in common? 2x. How about 6x and 3? 3. Left to right here, we have 4x squared and 6x. That's going to give us 2x. In the same way, 2x and 3, they have 1 in common. So here's our factor form, 2x plus 3, 2x plus 1 equals to 0. Our next step, you guys, is to separately set these both equal to 0, right? So here's my first equation, 2x plus 3 equals 0. My second equation, 2x plus 1 equals 0. I'm going to start over at the left and I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Those cancel there. We get 2x equal to -3. Divide by 2, both sides, and we get x equals -3 halves. That's one of my answers. Over here on the right hand side, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. There we go. I get 2x equal to -1. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And we get x equals -1 half. And those are my two answers. Slide divide. We already did this step 1 in this last problem using box and diamond. So I'm just going to rewrite what we got from there. 4x squared plus 8x plus 3 equals 0. Slide divide, again, we start with that diamond, and we had 12 on top, and we had 8 on the bottom. And we find that those two values are 6 and 2. Here's what we do that's different with slide divide. We're going to do x plus 6, x plus 2. And then remember, this is when we bring in this first, we bring in our value, and we divide both of these by a. 6 divided by 4 and 2 divided by 4. Here we're going to have to reduce these fractions, okay? So for this first one, we get x plus 3 over 2, reducing it, and we get x plus 1 over 2, reducing it. Since those are both fractions, we need to bring this 2 up and put it in front of the x. In the same way, we need to bring this 2 up and bring it in front of the x. And that's how we get 2x plus 3 and 2x plus 1. Again, you guys know how to do step 3 because we just did that. We already did that to solve. And just one more thing I wanted to go over in this video. What if it looked like this, right? So we know it doesn't equal 0. How can we get it to equal 0? We want to start by subtracting 8x, right? Minus 8x. Those cancel over there. And then again, just be really, really careful, guys, how we write this. We want to write the 4x squared first. Then I for sure want to write this -8x next. And lastly, we put our c value, which is our 3, equals 0. And then you can use either box or slide divide to finish off the problem.